When I bought Stardew Valley back in 2016, I honestly didn't expect much. At the time, I was really into gardening. I had a pretty big garden on my property, and the idea of a game where you grew crops and built a farm sounded interesting enough. What did interest me about the game were the graphics. Back then, wasn't a fan of pixel art. I had grown up with all of those things, Pong, Atari 2600, all the early systems. But by 2016, I was used to the modern graphics. Looking at Stardew Valley, I remember thinking, really, is this the game that everybody's talking about? But I bought it anyway, and somewhere along the way, it became my favorite game of all time. Now, here's what's interesting. If you spend any amount of time reading Reddit, Steam reviews, gaming forums, or watch videos about Stardew Valley, you start noticing something. People don't just say it's a good game. They struggle, like I do, to explain why it's such a good game. Over and over, you read the comments from people saying things like, I've put 800 hours into it, it's my comfort game, I always come back, and it's the only game that completely relaxes me. And I agree, I feel the same way. And I started wondering, what is it about this little farming game that's had such a hold on millions of people for almost a decade now? And I think I've figured it out. The first thing, and probably the biggest reason, is what I call the one more day loop. And if you've played the game, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. You're sitting on the game, it's mid-evening, you know you need to get up and do a few things before you go to bed. You tell yourself, I'm just going to water the plants, and I'm going to check the chickens, and that's it. I've got to get up and take my ass to bed in real life. But then I decide to milk the cows, and the next thing you know, you notice that the blueberries are ripe, so you go harvest them, and then you remember it's Friday, and the traveling cart's over there, and you need to go check and see what it is. And then you remember you need hardwood, but you still don't have your upgraded steel axe, so you think maybe I should go and spend the rest of the day in the mines. And then when all that's said and done, you finally crawl into bed. And not on the game, in real life, because it's 2 o'clock in the morning and you should have been in bed hours ago. It's almost magical how the gameplay loop works. Each day in-game lasts around 15 minutes, and 15 minutes feels manageable. Another 15 minutes is harmless, and before you know it, you've played 8 of them. Now, I don't think that's the whole story, because there's plenty of games out there that have addictive gameplay loops to them. Stardew Valley has something else. Every single day feels productive. Think about it. Maybe today you didn't make as much money, but you upgraded your axe, or you caught a fish that you've never seen before or you needed for the collections, or you finished one of the community center bundles, or you found enough copper for your first furnace, or rearranged the farmhouse, or planted next season's crops. Almost no time feels wasted, even though the days seem to go by pretty fast in game. Very few games manage to make even a bad day still feel worthy. Stardew Valley never tells you failed. Instead, it quietly says that you made progress today in some way or another. If it's the ticker of your money going off after you go to bed or whatnot, you always feel like there was some progress made. And I think that's something we all crave. Another thing I've noticed is the idea that there's no wrong way to play. Some people spend hundreds of hours fishing. Others practically live in the mines. For some people, it's all about raising animals, making a winery, optimizing every square foot of that farmland, or all of the above, which is typically, I think, how I wind up eventually playing each game that I do. And there's even some people that barely grow any crops. And there's a lot of challenges revolved around a lot of those things. But nobody's playing the game wrong. And that's very rare in this day and age. Most games have a best strategy. Stardew simply asks, what do you enjoy? And then it lets you do that. And there's also an aspect about the game that I can't seem to shake. And it's the idea that Stardew Valley starts to feel like home. Pelican Town itself. Not just relaxing, but home. If you think about it, after enough hours, you know where everybody lives, you know their routines, you know where to find Robin, you know where to find Gus at the saloon, you know exactly when Pierre closes the store, You know every shortcut in town. You don't think about it anymore. It becomes familiar, it becomes comfortable. It's almost like visiting a place that you've lived your whole life. I know that's how it feels for me when I haven't played the game in a couple of years and I go back to it. It feels like home. And then there's the villagers themselves. When you first start playing, they're basically walking quest markers. But over time, they stop feeling like NPCs, or at least they did to me. Shane isn't the grumpy guy anymore. Pam's not just the drunk bus driver. George isn't just an old man in a wheelchair. You slowly get to know them, and you know their struggles and their personalities and their flaws, and you befriend them and they act differently towards you. Now, to be fair, they don't have these huge in-depth character arcs or anything like that, but you start to care about the NPCs, and that's pretty remarkable. And the other thing is, regardless of how much time you take away from the game or how many years you play the game, they don't die. And I know that sounds weird, but if you've ever read a book or watched a TV show, a long series, eventually the characters that you love die. When I come back to the game, it may be 2 years, 3 years since I played it, and then I go back and play it for another 50 or 60 hours. They're always there. And there's something really nice about that. Now, there's something I found really interesting. A lot of people say that Stardew Valley is relaxing, and that's true, but I think there's an important distinction. The game isn't relaxing because nothing happens, by far. The game is relaxing because there's nothing truly urgent. Miss planning today, tomorrow's another day. You just do it tomorrow. Didn't finish the community center in the first year? Well, there's always next year. Forgot somebody's birthday? Life goes on. The game doesn't stand over your shoulder with a stopwatch. Most of the stress people feel in Stardew is stress they create for themselves. The game isn't rushing you. You're rushing you, if anything. And I think that's an important lesson. For me personally, I think there's another reason why I love this game. In my everyday life, I'm constantly solving problems. There's something always broken. Somebody somewhere always needs something. There's satisfaction in solving those problems, but there's also pressure. In Stardew Valley, I'm still solving problems. I'm still building something. I'm still making progress. I'm still creating, but none of it carries the weight of real life. It's productive without being stressful. It's the feeling of accomplishing something without anxiety attached to it. And I think a lot of adults understand exactly what that feels like, and that's why the game resonates the way it does. There are thousands of video games that come out every single year. Certainly there are games that impress us, that are spectacles. They're beautiful games. They take hundreds of hours to complete. And then there's games like Elden Ring, which are all of the above. Very hard, but so fulfilling when you finally get through it, as well as being a grand spectacle. And we'll put hundreds of hours into games like this, but then at the end we quietly move on to the next thing. And then there's games that become a part of us. For me, Stardew Valley was one of those games. It's an old friend that I don't visit as often as I used to, but I know that whenever life gets a little too hard or a little too loud, and I just need to take a step back and relax a little bit, it's still there. The farm hasn't changed. The seasons still turn. The leaves still fall. That familiar autumn music still plays. And for a little while, the world slows down again. Maybe that's what Stardew Valley's always been. It's not just a game for me, it's a place that every once in a while I go back to. Maybe that's why Stardew Valley has lasted so long. It's not just about farming. It's not even about the crops. It's about creating a life that feels satisfying. It's about slowing down, making steady progress, and finding the joy in simple routines. It's about building something that's entirely your own, and maybe it's also about escaping a world that's constantly telling us to hurry. I've played a lot of games over the years. Some have better graphics, some have bigger worlds, some have better combat. But very few games make me feel like Stardew Valley does. It's one of the rare games that doesn't just entertain you. It becomes a part of your life. You don't just remember playing it, you remember living in it. And maybe that's why after all these years, we keep telling ourselves just one more day. So if you made it this far in the video, I'd like to point out that I've been using mods in this playthrough. And if you haven't ever used mods on Stardew Valley, especially you all who have played the game for hundreds of hours, I highly recommend that you try it out. Now, there is a little learning curve to getting the mods installed right. There are several websites out there. The website that I use the most is Nexus Mods, and it has an unbelievable amount of mod options that you can use to literally change the game from the ground up. Some of these mods completely change the base game. Some of them add to it, which are the ones that I like. New NPCs, new areas, new quest lines, new items, new decoration items, you name it. Anything you can think of. There's all kind of different tweaks and things for it. So if you're a long-time player of Stardew Valley and you've never been introduced to it, I suggest you take a look at it. It can certainly breathe new life into this great game. So if you made it this far, thank you for watching. And I'd like for you, if you would, leave a comment and tell me what you think about Stardew Valley. If you're a longtime fan like I am, tell me how it impacted you as a gamer. And also, if you're into this kind of gaming conversation, do me a favor and hit subscribe, and I'll see you next time.